Earlier, I spoke to Kurt Volker, a former U.S. ambassador to NATO, and I asked him what Putin's remarks mean for the international community and about the timing of the pardon of his former opponent.
He's got the world now looking at Russia, and he's actually getting some pretty sharp blowback because of the anti-gay, anti-lesbian atmosphere in Russia and the legislation that's there. So you have people deciding not to send high-level delegations. The French aren't sending any high-level government officials. President Obama has decided not to go and to send Billie Jean King as a representative for the United States, who of course is an LGBT activist in the United States. Germany's decided not to send the president of Germany. So there's a lot of pushback on some of these democracy and human rights issues in Russia. And so I think it's very deliberate on Putin's part to show that, no, we're paying attention, we're making change, we're open, in order to try to attract the world and to portray, for a time period up leading to Sochi at least, a different image.
You think he did that with this big pardon that everyone is talking about?
Well, the Khodorkovsky one is very interesting. It's something that's been out there for a long time. He's been a political prisoner for 10 years. It has resulted, along with the death of Sergei Magnitsky, in the Magnitsky legislation here in the U.S., which applies individually targeted sanctions. And so that also attracted a lot of attention. And saying that he's going to pardon him is aimed, I think, at appeasing a little bit of this world opinion in the lead up to Sochi. Something we have to keep in mind, though, what do these pardons really mean? So he may be pardoned from being in jail, but still guilty of other things for which he might be tried again in the future or arrested again in the future. Is he allowed to leave the country? Is he allowed to engage in any kind of other activities? The principal thing that he was arrested for, in the view of a lot of critics, was funding opposition parties. And what kind of scrutiny will he be under if he is indeed pardoned and released? The same with the women from the band Pussy Riot. If they are released from jail as promised, they're not getting their passports back, and they're not getting exit stamps to leave the country. So they're kind of, in a way, enlarging the prison.
Do you think that Russia can help Ukraine, as Putin says it, in some ways that the EU cannot?
Russia, or Putin in particular, has a very strong and clear strategic interest in keeping Ukraine from becoming a developing, democratizing part of the heart of Europe. If the Ukraine, as a historical part of the origins of Russia, a former part of the Soviet Union, is succeeding, is becoming more prosperous, is becoming more democratic, is protecting human rights, and is a growing part of Europe, you're going to start to have Russians asking, well, why not us? You know, why couldn't we do that? And so it's very important to Putin to prevent Ukraine from realizing those kinds of goals. So what we saw was a lot of pressure on the business elite and the oligarchs in Ukraine not to go along with the EU association agreement. The president of Ukraine then announced that he wasn't going to do it. That then led to these great protests that we've seen now in Kiev over the last several weeks. And then Putin steps in with a loan offer to say, oh, well, you know, you need this help, so we'll offer you this loan, which is all aimed at continuing to try to pull Ukraine toward Russia's orbit.
Putin called Iran a priority partner in the region. We have these talks going on right now with Russia and the other powerful 5 countries. And do you think Russia will continue to help cultivate some sort of agreement between Iran and the rest of these countries?
Russia wants to position itself as the country of the P5 closest to Iran, more looking out for Iranian interests. And I think he's quite accurate in saying they're partners with Iran, at least when it comes to supporting President Assad in Syria, because they're both doing that.
What do you think were the big takeaways from this annual news conference?
What I think is interesting is that he felt a need to go this far in terms of pretending to pardon Khodorkovsky, or maybe actually following through on that, or other political prisoners in jail. That means that some of the international pressure and criticism was getting to him a little bit in the advance of the Olympics, and that's all the more reason to keep it up.